Hi everybody, Golden Era Bookworm here. Today I've got the great pleasure of introducing a book that maybe a lot of you are not aware of, and that is The Way to Live, written by the Russian lion himself, famous wrestler and strongman from the Bronze Era, George Hackenschmidt. The Way to Live was written, I believe, in 1908. And according to Bill Pearl, actually, it went through 21 different editions and was one of the most successful books ever written on physical culture. I am very, very lucky to own an original hardcover copy, in beautiful condition too. There it is, The Way to Live by Hackenschmidt. And the book is truly a collection of George Hackenschmidt's, I guess, philosophies of physical culture, his biography, and within his biography, he does talk about, of course, his epic wrestling matches and stuff like that. So if you're a fan of wrestling, you're going to love this historical book on wrestling as well. And of course, it goes through a whole plethora of lifting techniques that George Hackenschmidt used and recommended. And so it's really also, you could say, a strongman book as well. So you got really all these different topics, nutrition as well, and lifestyle, etc. It's also a philosophical book because you can really see the intelligence of these strongmen and bodybuilders of the past. I always say that these guys were true artists and really express themselves through their art. Now let's get straight to the book. Carefully going through the pages. It's beautiful. I mean, I love these books. They're not just hardcovers back then, but the designs are all beautiful. The binding, everything's fantastic. Really high quality paper. That's why they last. Beautiful photos. Let's look at the contents and blow that up a little bit so you can see the contents. Well, you can see that George Hackenschmidt writes about the very first chapter being an introduction. He goes through stating, why should we be strong? Adaptability and characteristics, physical perfection and strength, nutrition, as I said before, rest and wholesome sleep, something that most of us, including me, don't do enough, and therefore we're exhausted. And how can we perform when we are exhausted, both in our workplace or at home, right? When we're training, when we're having fun, etc. Training, exercise without weights, muscle exercises with weights, and weights for exercises. Interesting. Exercises for athletes, as well as timetables for training, and Dr. von Krajewski, the father of athletics, and his system of life. Now that has got to be an awesome chapter to read. I don't know of any other books really that talk about Dr. von Krajewski, who really was a pioneer in physical culture back in Eastern Europe. And I mean, he championed things like the use of the kettlebell, odd lifts, and all these other things, and had a great influence, from what I understand, in weightlifting as well. And of course, at the end, there is the story of my life. The book is so the story of my life, as in George Hackenschmidt's life, his biography. The book's about 200 pages, I believe. Yeah, it's 170 pages or so. And now I'll zoom out and kind of flick through the book for you. It's, as I said, it's a fantastic read, covering. Let's have a look. Nothing better. It even gives you a list of illustrations. Actually, before I continue, I do want to state that if you do want to get yourself a copy of this book, obviously you're not going to find it in hardcover unless you look really for a long time and very carefully online. You can actually find the book on Bill Hinburn's website, and let me see if I can quickly bring that up for you. There it is. So I've got, for example, on my iPad, The Way to Live is still available in paperback at Bill Hinburn's website. That's Super Strength Training, superstrengthtraining.com. However, if you do want to purchase the book as a digital copy I actually own a copy, my own copy, which I scanned, of course, and is available on my website, www.goldenherobookum.com. I know some people want paperbacks. You can find that at Super Strength Training. But if you want a digital copy, carry it on your phone, which is, I know, very convenient for a lot of people. You can also purchase it on my website. There's a scanned book for you to upload there. Anyway, moving on. I've already done the contents. I like the fact that they also have a list of illustrations. Books were so well done back then. He gives an introduction. I really just want to get into the some beautiful photos here, into the exercises. I find the exercises listed in these books are truly fantastic. So there's chapters on nutrition, as I said, and from what I understand, he was an omnivore, stating that one should eat more fruit and vegetables, but also having good sources of protein, nuts, things like that. Of course, all strongmen back then had a whole food diet, basically. Supplements barely existed. The only one that I'm aware of was Plasmon, and there was another one, I think Oxoid it was called, which is a beef extract. Anyway, and Sandow obviously championed Plasmon, and I've talked about that in the past. Rest and wholesome sleep. Training, here we go. Now, exercises without weights. So he talks about, obviously, I love it. Check that out. Check it out. The strongman model has a mo. That's fantastic. I love that. Yeah, so obviously he's talking here about stretching exercises and mobility exercises. This is very important. This is something a lot of people don't get. You start with weight training and people just want to hit the weights immediately. And one can understand the enthusiasm, but if you don't have the mobility and the functional capacity to do these exercises, you're just going to hurt yourself. And even the strongmen, of course, back then, of course, they understood this, and started off any student with a program on mobility and functional capacity. Of course, it's the best way, right? Really working on the trunk, on the posterior chain, as you can see. And again, a lot of these exercises you're not going to find these days anymore, right? You're not going to find, for example, the cross step. This is a very martial kind of, I can already see, a very martial arts kind of calisthenics, right? You got your martial arts, this is very yoga-like as well. Expansion of the chest, strengthening of the legs and lower abdominals, right? Mobility of the trunk, again, cross-stepping, the horse stance, very, very martial. And if you are watching Professor Heffernan, Connor, if you're watching, I don't know if you've seen this book. I'm pretty sure you have. Again, we've talked about this in the past. Professor Connor Heffernan from the Stark Center in Austin, Texas. We just did an interview recently where we were talking about how martial things were back then. The education of physical culture had a martial element because that's essentially where it stems from, but that's another story. And then we finally start with the muscle exercises with weights. First is, of course, given here is the wrestler's bridge. This was, if any exercise or any two exercises are known to have really been advocated by George Hackenschmidt, it definitely was the wrestler's bridges, and of course the hack lift or the hack squat, as it is now known. I love the use of the globe bells back then. Fantastic. A lot of strengthening of the neck, very, very important. And of course, a lot of strongman-like exercises, again with fairly light dumbbells here. And we've got some pressing actions, some lifting, not Olympic lifting, but we've got some basic bodybuilding exercises, I should say. Raises of all sorts, presses, flies. Yeah, you get the idea. If we move on now to exercises, what an awesome photo here of George Hackenschmidt, weights for exercises. I think he talks about the type of weights you can use, but I swear I thought I saw an image earlier. Oh, well, maybe it's later. Then there's exercises for athletes, and this is kind of very important to make a little pause here and just explain something. it's interesting how in this book, George Hackenschmidt differentiates exercises for basically the layman, which is exercises, as he puts it at the very beginning, muscle exercises with weights, which is really for any male reader, as you can see, who wants a good physique, just the average person, right? And here, these other exercises, just for general suppleness and tone and you know, just for people that want to exercise, have a brief exercise at home. And it says, you know, they don't have barbells, they don't have dumbbells. He gives some topics here, some chapters, options really for people that want to train at home without any weights, and those that want to develop a good physique. And then he differentiates it further for athletes, exercises for athletes, which of course involve now more power movements, such as odd lifting with one-handed lifts, two-handed lifts, with progressively more difficult apparatuses, from dumbbells to barbells, which require greater wrist strength, right? And it's just really well written, this book. It's a fantastic book. Going, you know, even kettlebell holds are shown here, as I've talked about, and probably things like kettlebell juggling may even be described in here. Yeah, and of course he talks about Dr. Krzyzewski. I just saw his image there, right? The father of athletics and his system of life. Fantastic, you know. And of course his biography, his wrestling days. I mean, and his way of training. What a fantastic book, written by George Hackenschmidt well over a century ago. We're talking, you know, 11 decades ago, back in 1908, over 11 decades. And the book is still valid today. As I mentioned, if you're interested in purchasing it, you can find a scanned copy on my website, or if you want a paperback, you can find it on Bill Hinburn's website, superstrengthtraining.com. And by the way, you can also, of course, find these books on other websites. I mean, there's many websites that actually sell this book. I believe it's also on Amazon and other websites like physicalculturebooks.com, Strongman Books. There's so many websites that sell these books, so you can find them if you do your research. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed watching this video. If you have, please give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't to the Golden Era Bookworm. Leave me your comments, and thank you for watching. What can I say? If you want to support my acquisition of rare materials, literature like this, please donate via PayPal. As many of you know, I am building a library and trying to create a museum for physical culture here in Europe. So please support. You can also become a patron, and please, if you're interested in purchasing books such as this, Strongman books, etc., from books, you know, old school bodybuilding books, courses that are all out of print, please visit my website, www.goldenerabookworm.com. And finally, if you wish to collaborate or pass on your relics or literature, just email me. The email is always given below. Hope you've enjoyed watching the video. This is the Golden Era Bookworm. Bye for now.